in the front, Christmas.
Yeah. That keeps the cat out more.
Well, good morning, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Toledo on Easter Sunday, the 20th of April, 2025. I'm Rebecca Phillips, today's service associate, and I'm here with Tim Barger, the Toledo Unitarian senior minister. Jeffrey Maxey, our music director, is at the piano, and he is directing our First Unitarian choir. Jenny Gottman, our director of lifelong learning, will tell today's story. And the tech crew is led today by Krista Schneider as the producer-director, Andy Gottman controlling the cameras, commissioned lay minister David Strickler at the soundboard, and Julia McGee, the acting president of our Board of Trustees, taking on a kind of general assignment for tech support. Walter McGee, Julia's husband and the main man for our video tech, is away today while he's recovering from some medical care, and we hope that he'll be back with us soon. And as you might have noticed, we have many more volunteers helping today, greeters in the lobby, religious education helpers for today's RE activities, and a kitchen crew preparing for coffee hour, led by Carla Logan Mercer. We're a church with no official creed, and our only doctrine is love, the power that holds us together and is the center of our shared values. We welcome everyone as we sang in our opening song. If you are a visitor, you may notice in the pew rack in front of you a yellow card, and if you choose to fill that out, that helps us to know that we have new seekers here. If you include your email address, we'll send you our weekly UUFYI newsletter, which has announcements of our various activities, and some weeks there are a lot of them. As you meet people today, feel free to introduce yourself and just ask any questions that you may have. We welcome those who are joining us virtually on our Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel, so whether live this morning or later when you tune in. And we hope this time serves your spirit.
Hi, I'm Reverend Tim. And let me add to Rebecca's welcome, and my fairly recently improved eyesight tells me that we do have a slight personnel change in our tech bay.
Oops.
Andy Gottman is our director today.
Oh.
Jeff Slauson is camera operator. And yes, David Strickler still is running the soundboard.
Sorry, and I thought I had seen Krista earlier. You know?
Yeah, Krista is here, but I think she has religious education
okay.
today. The flame of the chalice that we light in our services symbolizes courage and illumination and honors our search for truth and meaning. Let's all say the words for chalice lighting together. They're on the screen and in our order of service as Rebecca lights the flame. Our chalice has the spirit of Unitarian Universalism. We light it centered in love. May it glow with sacredness and shine for each and for all. And let's continue reciting together with Rebecca leading us in the covenant of our congregation. This is not a creed, but what we share with general agreement and what we as a religious community work toward.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
In this first of 3 intentional times of spiritual practice in our Sunday services, there can be other times that might help you, including your own candle lighting, but these 3 are for the full congregation. We look beyond ourselves, considering celebrations and sorrows and the state of things. It's Easter, a day of resurrection, renewal, and yes, religion. Let's enjoy spirit and spring today, as well as having hope. One hopeful aspect for me was reading that a molecule was discovered in a distant planet that could be the first sign of biological life originating in a place other than Earth. Science and exploration are very important, and may we and our government continue to seek wonder and awe for all of us. We know that the world can be tough, and we're living in times that might be a bit too interesting. So please, let's continue to have First Unitarian be a place of welcome, of grace, even of refuge from hard times. And that in this liberal religious community, we can help one another, care for ourselves, and have our part in changing the world. Please have mercy, be kind, give dignity, and show compassion. And remember to breathe. One reason we join in religious gatherings is to realize common links. The uncommon is here too. Let's be together in faith, hope, and love. Amen. Now please join in our opening hymn, number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. In some Christian traditions, people don't include alleluias during Lent, so this might be a time to catch up by singing it several times. For you who are willing and able, please stand.
Good morning. I would like to invite all of my younger friends to come forward to better hear our story if they would like to come. If you would prefer to sit where you are, that is fine too.
Hi. Hi. What's up, my guys?
What's up, my guys?
Hello.
Hello from all of us up here at the front. So happy Easter. Easter is a very fun holiday, but it's kind of crowded. We've got the story that most of us know about Jesus, right? And there's also eggs. There's the Easter bunny, possibly a rabbit that lays eggs, maybe.
No, because it keeps next to chocolate eggs and the chocolate bunny.
So, yes, lots of things going on in this holiday. So what is that all about? Why do we have all these symbols? Let's talk about it, Jalen.
I'm not sure if this statement is right, but isn't Easter like the resurrection?
Isn't Easter like the resurrection of God? Or Jesus? Yes. If you are Christian, or if you...
Jesus
Yeah.
does something weird of a shark eating him.
Jesus did something weird and a shark ate him? Is that what I heard? Because that is news, and you heard it here first.
I think that might be Jonah.
There are lots of symbols of Easter that we know, but we might not understand. These children need more sugar. So, like a lot of holidays, Easter is a mishmash of other faith traditions. There's the biblical story of Jesus that we're all probably at least a little bit familiar with. And there's the story of the Easter Bunny. And let me take this one. And there are stories about a goddess and a god that we really don't hear much about these days. The goddess is named Eastra, and she represents new things. And spring brings us a lot of new things. What are the things that happen in spring? The sun starts to get warm. Flowers start to bloom, and everything gets a little more green. Trees start to put out their leaves. Jalen? Yeah, we see the ants and the worms come out of the ground. Okay, that's enough examples. Thank you. The earth is starting to wake up from winter, and a lot of animals start having babies. That is where the eggs and the bunnies come in. In the spring, chickens lay a lot more eggs than they do at any other time of the year. They just go a little crazy with it. And in the olden days, back before people had refrigerators, they had to do something with all those eggs, right? So they ate a lot of eggs, they baked a lot of breads and cakes, and sometimes they stored those eggs by pickling them or boiling them. And that would make the eggs last a lot longer. They would hard-boil the eggs, and they would last a lot longer. Yeah, they're hard-boiled. And if you've got a whole, basket full of hard-boiled eggs, the next logical step is to start painting them. So that's where that came from. Bunnies represent new beginnings too. Rabbits are kind of famous for having babies, boom, 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 ever so many babies. A rabbit pregnancy lasts about 1 month. So that means that in 1 month, 2 rabbits can turn into 5 or 6 or 8 rabbits. And in 2 months, those 2 rabbits can turn into 10 or 15 or 20 bunnies. Yes, Jalen? Exactly like cell reproduction. Yes. Exactly. A dozen of carrots. Sometimes you'll see that around all the bunnies. Bunnies like carrots. So we see a lot of bunnies in the spring, and that's why bunnies are a great symbol of new beginnings. The idea that the Easter bunny lays eggs is just from an old German fairy tale. These days, we mostly say that the Easter bunny brings eggs or hides eggs, which is still pretty impressive for a bunny. And how come on Easter there's all this chocolate and candy? That comes from a new American tradition called capitalism, when lots of chocolate makers and candy makers came out and said, hey, it's Easter, time to get your chocolate. And all of us said, okay. And I am not mad about it. So that is Eastra, the goddess of new beginnings. So who is the god? He is a trickster, and he goes by many names. Jesus is a god. We're talking about an old-timey god, though, and he has a bunch of different names. In West Africa, he is called Alegba. And in Norway, he is called Loki. And in old-timey Europe, they just called him the jester or the fool. Can you think of an Easter tradition that we have that involves fooling people, Riker?
Like where somebody hides the eggs and you try to find them.
Somebody hides the eggs and you try to find them, yes. And anything else? Ooh, What was that, Jackson?
April Fool's Day.
April Fool's Day. You didn't know it was a religious ceremony, but now you do.
All we do, don't do Easter's, do scavenger.
Okay, a scavenger hunt sounds like a lot of fun too. So that is why we have all of these mishmash symbols of spring. We have picked out the bits and pieces of other faith traditions that we like to do. And in all of them, spring is a time of growth and hope and celebration. So, children, are we all ready to go to our classroom and grow? I'm not finished. We're not doing the egg hunt right now. Don't run to that. That's not what we're doing right now. We're going to class. We're going to grow our UU faiths. We are going to hope that we find a lot of good eggs, and we are going to celebrate all these awesome friends being here today.
Is there candy in the eggs?
I see trees of green and red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies are blue and clouds of white. The bright, blessed day and the dark, sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, and also on the faces of all the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry I watch them grow. They'll know much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world, yes. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful world.
Thank you, Jeffrey. The Unitarian Universalist Association is developing a new hymnal, and I keep asking that that song be included in the new hymnal. I think that it says our values very well. Please join me for more spiritual practice. This is Easter Again by Linda Susan Ulrich. We live inside paradox. Humans generally don't like to admit it. We much prefer tidy, stable, comprehensible, logical ways of getting through the day. But paradox is woven into the fabric of this particular universe we inhabit. Light is both a particle and a wave. Imaginary numbers describe the math of physical phenomena. Love and grief are inextricably linked, as are rage and sorrow, suffering and compassion, life and death. Time itself is both linear and cyclical. Each person's life traces a single arc, yet patterns emerge and reemerge. Fear always seems to return. Goodness knows terror finds its way back into the news. We always seem in need of help to roll back big stones that block our way. Yet we also come back to the Alleluia, even if its absence has gone on far longer than the 40 days of Lent. We raise each other's spirits when our sacred places seem empty. We anoint each other. We engage in a demanding faith that asks us to love the next world into being today. We are joyful, though we have considered all the facts. We practice resurrection. It is Easter again, my friends, and you are surrounded by a multitude who wish you well. Let's observe 1 minute of silence, hearing the sounds around us, and then we'll sing as our reflection hymn, number 123, Spirit of Life.
Our reading today is from the book of Luke, chapter 24, in the New Revised Standard Version. Now on that same day, 2 of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days?" And he asked them, "What things?" They replied, "The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and leaders handed him over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since these things took place. Moreover, some women of our group astounded us. They were at the tomb early this morning, and when they did not find his body there, they came back and told us that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see him." Then Jesus said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have declared. Was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and then enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them the things about himself in the scriptures. As they came near the village to which they were going, he walked ahead, as if he were going on. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it is almost evening, and the day is now nearly over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he vanished from their sight. They said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he was talking to us on the road, while he was opening the scriptures to us?" That same hour they got up and returned to Jerusalem, and they found the 11 and their companions gathered together. They were saying, "The Lord has risen indeed, and he has appeared to Simon." Then they told what had happened on the road, and how he had been made known to them in the breaking of the bread.
As I was thinking about the Easter story, I was wondering about the crowds. The week before Jesus was executed, the week before Passover festival time, according to the Christian scriptures, he was entering Jerusalem on a donkey, as a minister friend said, in a display of street theater. Passages in the Christian Testament mention big crowds following Jesus during his public ministry, the gathered being large enough that their presence sometimes interfered with plans and logistics. When Jesus was entering Jerusalem on what came to be called Palm Sunday, people in the crowd were putting their cloaks on the path and cutting branches from trees and putting them in the road for what today might be called a red carpet entrance. The crowd was ecstatic on Palm Sunday. They could follow Jesus around Jerusalem that week, both the people living in Jerusalem, who according to most Gospels were first experiencing Jesus, and the crowds who followed Jesus before that week, kind of like in recent years, people would go from town to town as nomadic fans of the Grateful Dead. The crowd at first was seeing the good Jesus was proclaiming and the healing he was performing. And then the crowd was losing ecstasy by witnessing the bad when religious and political power seemed to choose that eliminating Jesus was the move for the religious and political leaders' own aims. What is the story of the crowds outside of the gospel texts? After Jesus was arrested, then executed, how did they mourn? Did they believe what they heard? Some hearing that, as was later told in the book of Matthew, the chief Hebrew priests had paid soldiers guarding the tomb where Jesus was laid to say, "His disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep." While others in the crowds were hearing of Jesus' resurrection. Did fear of being perceived as a follower of Jesus, who had just been executed as a criminal, emotionally or anxiously remove from his followers in the crowds a tendency to grieve? As I speak today, I'm taking the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John as they're presented in the New Revised Standard Version translation, accepting for this talk that the narrative is what was intended, even if it might not be true, and that there's much scholarly discussion in which I won't engage today. It's the story the writers or the later developers of Christianity, as we don't have original manuscripts, wanted to tell. Today we take this as the story, let's say, biblically factual. Jesus is treated in that Holy Week as somewhat of a prominent rabbi, in my take. In Matthew, during Jesus' time in the temple, chief priests, scribes, Pharisees, and Sadducees, all of them religious leadership, asked Jesus questions. They were in opposition to what he was proclaiming, but in the temple, it seems to me that they, in essence, permitted the presence of Jesus as rabbi. They didn't throw him out, even if it might have been because they feared the crowds who followed Jesus. And this is after, in some accounts, he had begun the week disrupting the temple-related commerce and could have been barred or even arrested for that. Of course, the authorities found other ways to remove him at the end of the week. After Jesus' first day there, when he goes to the temple and disrupts things by interfering with money changers and merchants, then in Matthew, just after that same day, curing people who had physical challenges, chief priests and scribes grew angry at his seeming miraculous work, not following the standard temple ways, I guess. The next day in Matthew, the chief priests and elders of the people came to him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things, and who gave you this authority?" 2 parables later, still in Matthew, the chief priests and the Pharisees wanted to arrest him, but they feared the crowds because the crowds regarded him as a prophet. During this festival time in the book of John, the crowd is presented as its own character with, "The crowd answered Jesus, 'We have heard from the law that the Messiah remains forever. How can you say that the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is this Son of Man?' Jesus doesn't say, 'I am.' But the crowd was responding to Jesus, indicating, as John wrote, the kind of death he was to die. In the book of Mark, 2 days before Passover, the chief priests and scribes were looking for a way to arrest Jesus by stealth and kill him. For they said, "Not during the festival, or there may be a riot among the people." The thought came even earlier in the book of John, the plan to execute Jesus beginning even before he entered Jerusalem. After Lazarus had been resurrected, the book says, many of the Jews who had seen what Jesus did believed in him. The book of John repeatedly uses the Jews instead of the crowd. And sometimes that can be thought of as the Jewish leaders. At other times it could be the crowd, but it's not clear. That text continues, but some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what he had done. The Pharisees thought Jesus performing wondrous healings would lead crowds to believe in him. The Romans wouldn't accept that belief, so it would be better to kill Jesus and save their nation. What this gets to is the crowds definitely were a factor in the story of Jesus. People who did not live in Jerusalem had followed Jesus there. My take, not grounded by extensive scholarly research, is that the public condemnation of Jesus was not by a change of heart from his crowds, but by the people in Jerusalem, who in most scripture were not involved in Jesus' public ministry, which was outside of Jerusalem. This could be the place for a sports analogy about home team and visitors, with any advantage for this story, especially life or death decisions, going to the people of Jerusalem, so those traveling couldn't get the favor of choosing Jesus of Nazareth at any level of the Passion story. And the visitors likely feared attack by association. This helps for the story of Pontius Pilate having a tradition of releasing a prisoner during the festival, perhaps as a goodwill gesture of public relations. And Mark says the prisoner could be anyone for whom they asked. The locals asked for a murdering insurrectionist to be released, and Pilate, not the crowd, asked if they'd prefer to see Jesus released. And Mark and Luke both wrote that the crowd's response was, "Crucify him." Could Jesus' traveling masses turn so quickly? I think it's more the Jerusalemites wanted their own Barabbas released. They might have been friendly to Jesus' entry to Jerusalem at the beginning of the week, but maybe he didn't turn out to be what they envisioned. In her book, Looking for Jesus, Virginia Stem Owens wrote, "The Jerusalem crowd had perhaps too definite an idea of what they wanted from the man they went out to welcome to the city. Along with their hope of a Messiah, they brought their job description for him. They imposed on the man riding the donkey their own vision of a Messiah as a defiant rebel. Many of them, caught up in the spirit of revolt, might have willingly died with him. But their vision quickly faded. This so-called Messiah issued no call to arms, submitted meekly when he was arrested, offered no further challenge to either ecclesiastical or political authority. Fame is fragile, hinging on an implicit transaction between celebrities and their fans. If the celebrity doesn't live up to the crowd's expectation, its mood can quickly turn ugly. No one buys a ticket to see Madonna in a shirtwaist singing hymns. She continues, this Passover crowd, who knew only too well what they wanted from Jesus, were not open to receiving what he had to give. As individuals, they might have heard him out, listened to his pitch for the true kingdom, but as a crowd, their corporate vision, centuries in the making, was too fixed, too obdurate to allow for alteration. It was impossible to hear his voice above the shouting. So the crowd, at least those who were vocal, chose instead a proven defiant rebel, Barabbas. We read of that week of Jesus' public appearances in the temple and then the passion story of his arrest and execution, with only a little bit in those books about Jesus post-crucifixion. We don't get stories of the crowd after Jesus' burial and the empty tomb being discovered, outside of accounts including the apostles, or expanding in a vague way, the 11 and all the rest in Luke, and women close to him. We do have a report of two men walking to Emmaus and encountering Jesus as a traveling companion who joined them for dinner, then disappeared when they realized who he was. But they seem to be the only two people from the crowds. After Jesus was put to death, what became of the crowds that followed Jesus? This gets to my question of, did Jesus have a funeral? What the Christian scriptures tell of Jesus' resurrection is that the news was going around, as you heard me cite the book of Matthew. But I wonder how quickly word of mouth would travel, what the extent of the belief in the story would be, and how the crowds reacted to the death of this rabbi they went on the road to follow. The Gospels tell of people close to Jesus preparing the body for burial, engaging in the rites of that time. There probably wouldn't be any type of public ceremony to grieve the loss of an adored figure, even if he weren't executed by the government. Would belief in his resurrection be immediate? Let's not forget that there are Christians, including Unitarian Universalists, who believe that Jesus was fully human, not a deity who was resurrected after death, but a religious leader and social justice activist, we might say, whose influence was so great that after he died a human death, stories came into being about his not remaining dead. But fully human means one human life. And then beliefs decide whether that's one life in total or one life at a time to recognize the concept of reincarnation, but not one life continued as the same human after death. And I ought to add, going back to Christian scripture, Jesus himself wasn't promoting funeral practices and burial rituals, leaving the dead to the dead, you could say. In the book Christianity, the First 3,000 Years, Darmaid McCullough wrote that the Jesus movement, quote, was a marginal branch of Judaism whose founder left no written works. Jesus seems to have maintained that a trumpet would sound for the end of time very soon, And in a major break with the culture around him, he told his followers to leave the dead to bury their own dead. This saying is clearly authentic, he continues, since gospel writers felt bound to preserve it, even though it outrages every pious norm of the ancient world and a universal human instinct. Moreover, Christianity has stonily ignored the command throughout its subsequent history. End quote. In one of the textbooks I used for a University of Chicago Divinity School course when I was in seminary in Chicago more than 15 years ago, The New Testament, History, Literature, and Social Context, the scholar Dennis C. Dooling wrote, "We have almost no information about early funeral practices and rituals in the Jesus movement. There are references in religious studies that most crucified people were pretty much abandoned, put in a mass grave, or left on the cross until only bones remained, but the Roman Emperor Caesar Augustus had permitted Jews to take their crucified people off the cross and bury them before the Sabbath. So the story of Joseph of Arimathea getting permission to take possession of Jesus' body, then he or other followers, Nicodemus or Mary Magdalene and other women in different gospels, preparing it according to burial practices, could have some reality behind it. But it also might be a literary device to separate Jesus from all the other executed people, leading to discovery of an empty tomb after the Sabbath of Jesus rising from death. With the road to Emmaus, the gospel tales of the crowds have been told. Next will come the Jesus movement, seen largely through the book Acts of the Apostles and the letters of Paul. Many people today are talking of resurrection and hope. And I'm certainly supportive of that in so many ways in our society. But I felt that for me today, the crowds are important. In a way, those wanting earthly change, and what do they do in the immediate time when the rabbi they followed was taken from them, and before the news of resurrection reached them? But also, there are the stories we have and what we still want to know. Even when stories are proclaimed as truth, as we see in my wondering about the crowds, they might not be complete. So keep seeking and sometimes finding. Have a happy Easter. Blessed be, so be it, and always be a part of life, the universe, and everything.
Well, today we'll skip the standard words about our offering, and we'll also skip the singing and just pass the baskets. Those of you here and anyone online can see the different ways to give, including QR codes on the screen. But instead of focusing on money, today we're celebrating bringing two people into our community, as Zach Miller and Tristan Korneman, a married couple, will sign our membership book. So Tristan and Zach, please come forward.
Come on up and stand here so everybody can get wonderful looks at how wonderful you are. It is not a difficult process at First Unitarian Church of Toledo to become a member. We require 3 things of you. First, that you be in agreement with the values and inspirations of Unitarian Universalism. Note that we don't say you have to believe anything, as many of our members are seekers. While a few of us might have found, but we all continue to seek in other aspects. Second, that you make a financial pledge to support the work of First Unitarian Church of Toledo. We're a self-supporting congregation. Most of our funding comes from our members, and we don't receive money from the Unitarian Universalist Association. We give money to the UUA so it can support all Unitarian Universalist congregations. And let me briefly make a request to the congregation here. If you haven't made your pledge for the coming fiscal year, please do so as soon as possible, as we're trying right now to develop next year's budget, and the pledges so far are significantly less than this past year. The third thing we require for you to be a member is that you sign the membership book, that your signature joins those of our congregation's members going back to 1887, when the Church of Our Father was begun and was later incorporated in 1899, and which changed its name to First Unitarian Church of Toledo, Ohio in 1908. There's also a tie to 1860, when Unitarianism first was established in Toledo. There are other things we ask for this institution, but they're not requirements of membership, like those 3 things that I said are. We ask that you give of your own time, talent, and or interest as a volunteer within our congregation, as well as taking part when it fits your activism in social and racial justice activities that First Unitarian might be a part of or allied with. We ask that you consider pledging more than a minimum amount. Again, we depend on the members for almost all of our budget. But to join the church, we have no minimum contribution requirement. And we ask that you learn more about Unitarian Universalism, that you go online and seek out information about Unitarian Universalist theology and history and causes, and do that in addition to the educational activities we offer here in Spiritual Forum and adult education classes. That's basically the membership part of being a Toledo Unitarian, except that there are also opportunities for fun and fellowship, from coffee hour to picnics and other gatherings, but those aren't specific to holding membership. Now, what does membership get you? The primary part, I say, is to be in this Church of Religious Liberals and to have a voice in the ways we do business and governance, voting on the budget and board members, for example. There are also a couple of other perks, you might say, such as discounted room rental rates and no cost for rite of passage ceremonies, such as weddings and funerals. But when you're a member, you can say you're a Toledo Unitarian and know that you're an essential part of the church. We need to get back into the practice of giving you a goodie bag of Unitarian Universalist stuff. We'll work on that. With all of that said, when someone wants to become a member of First Unitarian Church of Toledo, I give the person an option. After they've completed their pledge form, so we have the information needed for our records, the potential member is invited to sign the membership book either in private, which usually means we find a board member as a witness along with me as the minister, and the person signs the book on a Sunday after the service. The most recent book signings before today were done 2 weeks ago during coffee hour in Fellowship Hall. And both Wayne Shaw and today's service associate, Rebecca Phillips, signed then. Or they choose to sign in public as part of the Sunday service. So all of us at church on Sunday can see the person's commitment and we can welcome them in a more public manner. Today, Zach and Tristan will be signing the membership book. They found us by way of our Toledo Unitarians YouTube channel. And we're very happy that they followed that up with visiting in person and now deciding to join. Tristan and Zach, please, I have the membership book. Take pen in hand and put your names here, print it out, and your signatures.
This is 20. I love the drama.
And you don't have to say anything, but if you want to share a word or two, you're welcome to.
Well, I think a lot of us have felt the epidemic of loneliness, and the greatest salve for that has been finding a community. So we're very grateful to everybody here.
Welcome to officially being Toledo Unitarian. Congregation, let's give our appreciation to our newest members, Zach and Tristan. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. And now let's move on to the coming soon part of our service, where we tell you what's on the calendar for this week, we give some announcements, and we also let you know what's up for right after the service. Next Sunday, join us for Spiritual Forum in Fellowship Hall at 9:45 a.m. when Paula Burney from the Alzheimer's Association of Northwest Ohio will speak about the disease, its impact, research, resources, and more. For the 11 a.m. service on the 27th, Judy Troutman will be in front of us again, bringing the annual Green Sanctuary service, which is titled Aloha Spirit. Many of you know that Judy spends some time in Hawaii, the land of aloha, just about every year, and her aloha spirit is strong. I'll add that it will be Potluck Sunday, and we'll keep the aloha spirit with a luau theme. It's a potluck, though, so if you can't bring luau-type food, any dish will be fine.
And here's an announcement for right now. This comes from Marcia Gamble. The Mother's Day flower sale fundraiser is back. Between now and May 4th, you can order your beautiful extra-large hanging basket. They are $30 each, and you can pay by check or Venmo. And is Marcia in here? Or is she? Anyway, there are, if you'd like to place an order, please fill out a flyer. There are some on the table between here and the fellowship hall, and get it into the basket in the lobby. You can contact the church office, and we can make this yet another successful fundraiser. Then, for fans of food and good company, on Thursday, the World Dining Group will be at the Chow Restaurant on Monroe Street in Sylvania for Italian food. Now, please note the time this month is 5:15, and the group is limited to 20 people. So if you'd like to attend, please contact Stacia Hansen today. And there's Stacia. She's waving her hand if you don't know her, because this is the final day for RSVPs. And the final coming soon entry is a double. The first is for me to repeat the invitation for you to join us in the fellowship hall after today's service for coffee, conversation, and social time. And the second is, if you like to be outside, we're having an Easter egg hunt at noon. So if I check the clock, let's hope there are still some eggs to be found out there. Or maybe that Jenny got the kids to wait until the sanctuary time is done.
In the interest of time, we only give a few announcements from the chancel on Sundays. We couldn't get to the Resist table, the men's group, Together Women Rise, the Sunday Services Committee, the upcoming board meeting, and Social Action Saturday. Please look at our UUFYI newsletter for more activities and information. And let's have one more observance of spiritual practice. We have gone beyond ourselves with the pastoral time and turned within for meditation, contemplation, and prayer. Now, recognizing the Buddhist thread in our congregation, and we'll share a time of metta, having for and sending to all beings love, kindness, and compassion. And we also have pagans among us, so I will follow by reciting the Wiccan Read. May I, may we, and may all beings be well, be happy, be peaceful, be safe, awaken to the light of our true nature, and be free. And ye harm none, do what ye will. Now please join me in saying the words on the screen while Rebecca extinguishes the chalice. We send the flame from our Unitarian Universalist chalice with the love on which we center everything, to fire up the world and spread equity, generosity, interdependence, justice, pluralism, and transformation. Go in peace, holding, knowing, and centering love in your lives and sharing love in your actions. Merry meet, merry part, and blessed be.